I'm a huge fan of sports films, and so I'd always been looking for one of those. And George and I had talked about it, and Grant, and so it was the idea of these young men being such underdogs, being, really none of them, could have should have been in the boat at some time. They all had things, so many things to overcome, so many hurdles, so many, other things. And it was just the story, the lives of those boys and putting them in the boat together and watching them, and it's just, to me, it's just the truest underdog story. The book itself and the story of these boys, it's so sprawling, and it takes place over several years of while they're in school. And so the biggest change I made was I condensed uh, everything into 1 year so that we would keep the boys, because in the book, we meet a lot of boys on that are on the first team or the JV team, the squads, and then by the next year they're gone, and so we have to meet new boys and everything. And so, which would work great in a like a limited series where we really had time to kind of go with all of them, but in a motion picture, in a film, it needs to be a little bit more condensed and just, that straight through line. And I'm a very structural writer, and so whenever I kind of know, I kind of have a sense for the rhythm of where these things kind of need to be. And whenever we have too many, it just threw things out of whack. And even though when the script was 150 pages, it just stayed with these boys. It stayed with the same thing. I never tried to kind of go outside and kind of explore the other years, because it just felt like this was the one we needed to focus on. They gave me the book. George and Grant gave me the book, and they told me that there were other screenplays that had been written, but they asked me not to look at them. And they said, just kind of come up with your own version and what you want to do. So I I went through and just started kind of building it out. And I told them, I gave them like a 20-page treatment of what I wanted to do, and kind of pitched them the idea of staying in this 1 year rather than going through, all the different ones and meeting the different characters, and how we could focus and we could really kind of wrap our arms around. We'd have a better opportunity to wrap our arms around the boys, if we just stayed with them. And so that worked. And so George and Grant signed off, and I wrote the script, and then George George worked his magic. For me, it's always been the idea. I think everyone pulls for the little guy, don't they? I mean, whether it's, a race, a boxing match, business, anything, life. It's like the ones that you feel like are a little disadvantaged, the ones that have to work a little bit harder. It's like there's something about that makes us want to really kind of root for them. And we just had a boatload full of them here. So it was just like it's impossible not to pull for these kids. And so, and it's just always been that way, especially in sports, athletic events. It seems like we're always looking for that underdog kind of to take down the champion, to take down the larger school, or, whatever. The editing is just out of this world. I mean, while they were shooting, George and Grant both told me it's that the trick of this film was going to edit the racing so that it would continue to be interesting. So each one felt a little different. That was the one thing. Whenever I'm writing it, I can use different words and I can use different motions and different things during the races. But when you're shooting it, it can look the same. It's like it's just these guys in a boat and they're just rowing and they're going past other boats. But the way they shot it and the way that Tanya edited it, it's just like, oh yeah, it's beautiful. The face of the boys for us, and I think for Dan Brown's novel as well, is Joe Rantz. And he kind of personifies in his life the battles, almost the same ones that, the hurdles that the team would have to overcome. And the great thing about Joe was he was kind of abandoned as a boy, so that he he grew to just rely on himself. He was just a loner who thought he would just take care of things on his own, didn't need help, didn't need anything. And rowing is the exact opposite of that. And so Joe for me was who I immediately focused on, because he was almost the odd man out in this. It's like the one piece that doesn't fit in a sport where you have to work so well together is the guy that wants to work by himself. And for Joe to kind of overcome everything that he'd been through, to kind of learn and accept and trust these other guys to help him, to that together they were actually stronger. He'd never had that in his life. And so Joe is kind of the face of it. And then his best friend Roger, who kind of got him into the crew, and they did it simply because they were trying to make enough money to eat and have a bed to sleep in, because they were just there was nothing at at this time in the Depression. They literally had no place. Joe's sleeping in a car. It's like, so he by getting on this team, he might have a room, he might have a roof, he might have a bed, he might have some food. And then the idea of where they would go with this never entered their minds. This was it was so far beyond it. They were really just trying to have a normal life. Working together, trusting the people around you, trusting people that you don't necessarily know very well, and trying to learn, trying to understand them so that you can trust them, so that you can work. It's not just for a boat, that can be used in a lot of things. That can be used in life. I think we are sorely missing that. The idea of kind of trying to learn about the people around us and understand them, and so that we can work together a little better.